Hello and welcome to the Landis Look, where we take an inside look at the world of real estate. I'm Justin, and today I'm here with Rachel. Rachel, hey, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to take an inside look at a part of the world of housing that we've looked at before with Rachel. Rachel works at the Atlanta Mission, who does amazing work serving the city's homeless. And we're going to take a look at what has it been like for both the Atlanta Mission, for the people that they're serving and helping, for the employees, and what has it been like to be homeless during the last couple months. And so, Rachel, first, thanks again for the work you're doing, and thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been very interesting last few months. You know, we were all told to go home, stay at home orders, but what if you don't have a home? And that's something I was telling someone this morning, I think at Atlanta Mission, we feel even more reinvigorated for the work that we do because we've seen what it's like globally to go home and how we are a home for so many men, women, and children. So March 13th, we basically locked down our campuses. We had 800 people living with us and felt like it was the best thing to keep them safe. And so we have been operating basically under emergency services since March 13th. We sent a good portion of our staff home. About 50% of our staff had to go home immediately because they either were in that high-risk population or they had young kids, like, you know what it's like to have young kids at home. They didn't have any school for them to go to, no childcare. And so yeah, it kind of began March 13th. And I think everyone's tired of hearing the word pivot. And tired of hearing the word new normal, but that's really what we've been having to do for the last several months is we are that home, and how are we going to continue to provide those services while being in a global pandemic?
Yeah. Well, tell us about the very beginning. It had to be, just a really, tough decision. One, to know what to do. There's no playbook for this. And then a tough decision for a lot of the people you're serving that are living at the Atlanta Mission as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was like 24 hours. And I think it was like that for a lot of us, where I remember we were kind of walking around the day before we locked down. We're like, oh, is this going to be a real thing? Is this actually a thing? And then within 24 hours, things happened so quickly.
Yes.
I'm really proud of our leadership because they made some really hard decisions that a lot of people wouldn't make. And they made those because they really felt like our primary responsibility was to keep our staff safe and the people that we serve safe.
Yeah.
And so we kind of made some really early decisions that a lot of places didn't make based on those two things. And so, yes, like you said, it was really difficult for our population because, first of all, they're already homeless and living in a shelter. Not ideal. You know what's also not ideal is getting their freedom taken away, saying you can't come and go as you please. Halfway through April, some of them were essential workers. We had to ask them to quit their jobs because it was just too much of a risk for the population. It was allergy season. And so everybody was scared of someone who was sneezing or coughing. So I think that I'm really proud of our staff, how they handled it. They really created a safe environment and tried to continue doing services, but also implemented a lot of new things. So since beginning of March, we've been doing deep cleans twice a day. We have been doing, so even before, people were screening individuals, we've been doing screenings twice a day. We did do testing across all of our campuses. So we've really been trying to do things to not just, we want our everyday actions to show our clients that we care so much about them, but we've added new things to say, hey, like, while we're making these hard decisions, we want you to know it's because we want to keep you safe. So,
and this is with 50% of the staff staying at home with no volunteers.
No.
Because you can't have volunteers coming in either.
And a huge thing was we're essential workers, but we don't get the essential supplies. So we were up against a huge hurdle of, we couldn't even get thermometer covers. I was driving around, actually the CVS in Grant Park had them. I drove around and picked some up for them. So it was really all hands on deck.
Yeah.
How can we get supplies because we weren't able to get them? And so that was a huge thing. So operating on a small staff and then not having all the supplies we needed, our team got so creative. We had an excess of rubber gloves. They would cut off the fingers of the rubber gloves, put it over the thermometer, and use that. And so just a lot of really cool to see our teams stepping up and just seeing their hearts for the people that we serve. They wanted to say, you're just as important as everybody else who's, you're more important because you're already a vulnerable population.
Yeah.
And
you guys had amazing, you mentioned safety considering, as I, first thought about y'all and I was like, oh man, so many people together. This seems like such a risky, just such a risky setup where it could really spread, but things have gone really well, right?
Yeah.
From a safety standpoint?
They have. So talking a little bit about that, the average rate, so basically the CDC describes a homeless shelter. You can't social distance in one because of the space and the proximity. So they consider it like a family unit, just like you and your wife probably wouldn't wear a mask at home. That was not, it was almost like a large family unit. So we were doing everything we could, but you also can't stay 6 feet apart. So a couple of the things that we did was we made sure that people couldn't come and go from the campuses. And that's why the staff that were on the campus, they were the same ones every day. They were getting checked. They were wearing masks. And so that's been a huge piece of that. And then we also did widespread testing across all of our campuses to make sure that we had a less than 1% positive rate. They were all asymptomatic. So about 402 individuals got tested and 4 were positive, which is incredible across the country.
That is incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's 30% in most states for homeless shelters.
Man, kudos to y'all and the great work that you're doing to both serve people and, in this case, to additionally keep people safe. And so, let's, we've been in it for a while now. What's the future look like? What's y'all's plan? Because COVID hasn't, it hasn't gone away despite a lot of things being open. People are still getting infected. You still have the same challenges. What's next for the Atlanta mission?
Yeah, it's definitely day to day. So we've started reopening a bit on our campuses, so people have been able to go back to work, which is a huge thing.
Huge.
That was the hardest decision we made this entire time, was to not allow people to work.
Yeah.
But so we started doing that, and we started doing intake again back up at the Potter's house. So we're slowly incorporating that back. The problem is, and it's kind of like it is for all of our businesses, like, how do you let people come back? And so we're really we've been working with the city this whole time to really figure out how we do that and how we do that well. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that too is like, our operations are going to have to look different. So like you mentioned, volunteers, probably for at least all of 2020, we're going to have to do virtual volunteer opportunities. So we're really looking at everything across the board and saying what's essential and how can we offer those services in the safest manner possible.
Love that perspective. What about, so, the folks that you're serving and helping, they were already in, they already, were able to find you guys and get connected and get in the program and start to get help. What about people you mentioned at the very beginning that had no home at all to go to? They were on the streets. What can you share about that experience with our audience in that situation over the last 3 months?
Honestly, it's one of the most powerless situations working at Atlanta Mission, because we did have to close. We had 800 people we had to keep safe. I don't think we've ever done that in our history. And so that was an incredibly hard decision. Thankfully, there were so we work really closely with the continuum of care in the city. Thankfully, there were a couple centers that were open or have been open this whole time. So we've been in really close contact with them. But you might have noticed, a lot of people have noticed, that there seems to be more people on the street than there's ever been.
I've heard people say that. Yes, definitely.
Yes. And so two parts to that. We'll have more concrete data once we do start doing intake more to see just what the volume is. 2 parts is there's been that obviously eviction forgiveness, which is up in July. So that will be a big deal for us to see how much of an influx we get from that. Secondly, is there's not as many people out on the street. So it's the most visible it's ever been.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's interesting. Yeah.
And so we're used to the hustle and bustle. We're used to it being hidden. We're used to not seeing it all the time. And so I think now, and I think for us, that's why we've just been so incredibly blessed by the community is that they're seeing it and they're doing something about it. And so I think, or we're anticipating in the next 6 months with the economic situation, we're going to see even more need for our services, and we are preparing. And as you know, we're building a new women and children's shelter. It's like, of course, it's the right time to do that. Like, we're going to have so much more of a need for that.
Yeah. Man, Rachel, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing to help the city of Atlanta, to help the people who are homeless here. And thanks to the Atlanta Mission, you guys have done an amazing job these last 3 months in what's been a really challenging time. And to everybody listening, we'll put a link at the bottom of this video. So if you guys want to donate, if you want to volunteer virtually with the Atlanta Mission and help them out, just like Rachel said, we're coming into a time where there's likely to be even more need in an area that there's always been need. And so we would love to work with you guys. We've got some big plans for later in this year to do another campaign with the Atlanta Mission. And we'd love to support you guys. We'd love for you to support the Atlanta Mission. And Rachel, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks. We'll see you guys next week.